Hello, and welcome to the Media Center's 11th Local Hero Award Series, in which we showcase 6 people from the Mid-Peninsula for outstanding achievement or contributions to the community. We solicited nominations and were especially looking for the unsung heroes. Each winner is an inspiration and each has a great story to tell. Sadly, the news is full of stories of refugees from atrocities in the Middle East, mostly from Syria. But the Syrians are not the only ones. Margaret Petros was born an Assyrian Christian in Iraq, another group that has suffered tremendously, but we don't hear as much about. Shortly before the fall of Saddam Hussein, her family was forced to flee to the U.S. Today, over 30 years later, she's the executive director of an organization called Mothers Against Murder, which assists the families of murder victims. This work has evolved to include the protection of refugees from the Middle East seeking asylum in the Bay Area. To date, she has helped 18 refugee families and 74 individuals in the long, complicated, and arduous process of seeking asylum and becoming legitimate members of this country. And at the moment, there's no one else who is doing this work. Margaret, set the stage for me, if you will. How hard is it for Assyrian Christians in Iraq today?
It is extremely hard. It's the hardest that it has ever been in our modern history. We know a genocide is going on. Since ISIS took over the second largest city in Iraq, Mosul, which was heavily populated with Christians that have been there for thousands of years, practicing their Christianity. ISIS immediately started raping, abducting, kidnapping Christians, selling women for cash on the black market. They very quickly identified which homes belonged to Christians and marked them with a letter N as an indication they are followers of Jesus the Nazareth, and gave them an ultimatum. You either convert to Islam, you pay a special tax of $470 a month if you want to stay Christian, or die by the sword. That was publicly announced. And what is sad about it is it's the neighbors that pointed out which Christian homes are there, who are the Christians. So it was a betrayal. And the fact is that very few people stood up for them. So they had no choice but to just very quickly leave the city, abandon everything, their livelihood, their homes.
Okay, so backtrack a little bit to your own personal situation. You got out, fortunately, ahead of the worst of it, right before Saddam fell. Nevertheless, there was a fair amount of discrimination, but it took a more subtle form. Tell me about what you as a schoolgirl suffered.
As a minority, people of different faith than the popular or the formal form of religion, there has always been discrimination. Again, fortunately, we left before the Saddam's dictatorship really took place. But I do remember being discriminated against, including not being able to wear the cross. In fact, this cross has been with me since I was 10. It's my faith. That's what I grew up with. Wearing it makes me feel safe. It doesn't hurt anyone else. So I remember very clearly walking from a break back to the classrooms with hundreds of kids. And the vice principal noticed this very isolated me and, in a mean manner said, "Do not wear this." That was the end of that incident. And I was a bright and good student, followed the policies and all. And I remember the principal of the school called me and recruited me to participate in a special program where none of the other kids in the whole school had to. It was about the regime's party it was a special meeting with someone in the Ba'ath party.
And the reason, what were they trying to do? What was this all about?
Brainwashing into, at a very young age, into following the regime and being part of the Ba'ath party, which no child of that age should be put in that position. I didn't understand any of that.
So they were trying to recruit you?
Oh, they did. And I actually had met with that woman twice, was given a very large book to study, and I did not feel comfortable at that age and told my parents. And fortunately, again, I had parents who were strong and able to say no. Very few minority people are able to stand up for themselves. And that continued, and it became worse in Iraq, where families and parents feared their own children. They were afraid that if they said anything about Saddam Hussein, they would go back to school, report them, and they would arrest the parents. It's really slowly moved to where forced families in every home to pretend they love Saddam Hussein.
Oh, I see. So Saddam Hussein eventually is removed. Is life better after that?
It is much worse, thousands of times worse for the minority Christians. The ethnic cleansing started very quickly. I mean, we heard within a week after he was removed from power, the radicals were going to Christians and threatening them with not being able to stay in their towns unless they pay that special tax called the jizya. In the town I was raised in, and when I lived there, my family lived there, it was about 95% Assyrian Christians, Chaldean Christians. By 2003, thousands had left already, but immediately after Saddam left, whatever was left were forced to leave out, and were displaced to northern parts of Iraq under Kurdistan's powers because of the radical Muslims who were did not make them feel comfortable to live. Churches were bombed very quickly. Every week afterward, we were hearing churches are being bombed. Priests were being kidnapped and killed. So the message after Saddam was, you're infidel and you're not welcome to stay in this country.
So you had to leave your home, although you got out early, and the people that you work with also had to up and move away from everything that was home and familiar, and under a shroud of fear. Just tell me a little bit more about what that feels like.
It's inhumane. Just imagine having to live in fear of someone knocking on your door at any time and for no legitimate reason to take you away from your family. It's a psychological terror. And uh, so many families suffered a lot worse because their children were involved maybe in wanting to get involved in promoting their nationalism as Assyrians. And that was, of course, prohibited. That was seen as doing something that's against the central government, even though it's just a human right issue.
Right. So fast forward to California, which you eventually made your way to, thanks to an uncle who sponsored you. You went to San Jose State. Pretty soon you started volunteering in victim assistance work, and you've pretty much stayed there. What is it about that work that has appealed to you, that's drawn you?
I've always had an interest in human rights, fairness, in bringing justice for others. And I chose that field and just loved it and stayed with it and excelled at it. And just bringing justice to crime victims is just a very important work.
So you are the executive director of Mothers Against Murder, and you branched out to cover this area. What are the similarities between the families of murder victims and the refugees?
This category of refugees, after ISIS took over and displaced them, is very similar to murder, as they came very close to being murdered or had family members murdered. And many of the families that I've helped had relatives, friends, all of them know someone who was killed. In Iraq in the past 15 years, during Saddam's powers, after Saddam's fall, and the worst was when ISIS came to take over Mosul.
So one at a time, families heard about you and came to you. What do you actually do? These are for people who are already in the U.S., who are seeking asylum. What do you actually do for these families?
Well, the first thing I do is assure them I'm here to help them, not to be afraid. This is a compassionate country that has laws to protect people in their situation, to tell the truth of what happened. I would help them with whatever I can. There's never a guarantee of anything. But
I think you're being modest. It sounds to me, from what I gather, these people could pay a lot more and hire an attorney, and they come to you and get the same thing they could get. Tell me about some of those families and what you actually do for them legally.
In my philosophy, no one who suffered the persecution of ISIS should have to pay for this humanitarian service. Many of them cannot afford to pay for it. They left with a cloth on their back. And some of them have sought consultation with attorneys, and the cost is huge. For a family of 4 that came to my attention, an attorney has asked for $14,000 and gave them absolutely no hope. It was very discouraging. To me, though, as a victim of crime advocate, when I find out about what's happening, I think, how could this not be eligible, actually? And how, as a human being, how can I allow these 3 youth children to go back to a village where it's within 20 minutes of ISIS? They're abducting children. They're turning them into terrorists. So all that plays into my work.
So give me an example of one of the many cases that really stands out in your mind, that is maybe the most dramatic that you've worked on.
I think the first case that came to my attention, because of all the atrocities that were going on and the world heard about it, and I just felt hopeless and helpless. and a call came in. It just fell in my lap. A pregnant woman that fled and directly came in contact with ISIS members. Fortunately, had a visit visa, and her family decided she should really leave because of how much trauma involved. Initially, when I met with her, she couldn't even tell me the story. She was
Too traumatized.
so
Yeah.
traumatized, so afraid for her life. And still, to date, fortunately, immigration accepted her application. Her son was born. They're both healthy, happy, but miss their home very much.
What did you actually do for them?
Well, to begin with, gather all the information, hold her hands. You know, her friend, she can cry to me anytime she misses her husband, her family. She stayed at my house when her interview came. I took her to the immigration office, to the airport. She calls me anytime she needs.
And didn't you kind of have to be a self-taught lawyer and learn a lot about what she needed?
I had to learn a lot, yes, because I had never done an asylum case. I've done naturalization for myself, for my sisters, brothers. I enjoy doing paperwork, learning about policies, procedures. I'm good at it. But when this type of need comes to my attention, I really did not question how will I do it, whether I know how to do it or not to. My thinking is more, I'm going to find a way to do it because it's a deserving issue, and I find ways.
And what happened with this family?
She's been accepted. She's working, but her child's nearly 2 years now, and he's not seen his father. We know how the child's brain develops in the first 5 years is a very important thing. And I've also completed the father's paperwork. He's been interviewed at the American Embassy in Baghdad, but still no decision. It's nearly, it's been over a year. So it's not easy.
Now, and so part of the family was already here, and those are the ones that you were helping. Is it easier for people who are already here, or is it maybe harder for the people who are already here to seek asylum?
It's definitely easier because they're safe, they're protected, they have some humanitarian rights. Outside of the country, they don't. They are just unknown. They're so insignificant. They're thousands of miles away. No, I know families that are just stranded in different countries and just no hope of even getting an appointment to see someone at the United Nations.
Does it ever get you down? And how do you deal with it?
The truth is, this ethnic minority group is disappearing. There are so few Assyrians left around the world. Their homeland was Iraq. That's where they kept their language, their culture, their traditions. And because of what's happening, especially with the last strike of ISIS, just displacing so many of them, to me it's just, I just hope they survive as individual human being. Realistically, the ethnic minority group is just being endangered species and just it's sad.
So you are here working with those who are here and helping them one family at a time. What else is being done? Who else is working on this besides you?
I don't know of anyone who is providing free service to get them to file and guide them through the immigration process. I don't know of any social service agency or an immigration specialist agency. I don't know of any grants. There are resettlement programs that help when refugees are accepted from outside of the country into the United States. But when they're here, I don't know of any agency who's helping them.
That's why I thought it might be harder when you're here already, it sounded like from your description.
Well, it's not, when it comes to their safety, it's not harder. And it's just a matter of time. But when they're outside, they're living on the street, homeless. They don't have the education. The children are not going to school. Medicine's not available. People are dying, and it's going to be nearly 3 years that ISIS displaced them, and still they are displaced.
Of the many families you've helped, what are you most proud?
I think I'm proud of the number of individuals, families that I've helped, and being able to do it at absolutely no cost. I'm proud. I'm proud of seeing some of the children involved in these cases learn the language, excel in school. It's a blessing for me.
What are some moments that just you'll never forget?
I think the moment that the priest at my church introduced me to a family that I ended up helping was 3 youth, 14, 16, and 17-year-old, that were terrified of going back home. They were here visiting for their uncle's wedding. And it was on August 15, 2014. It was, I was at church for the Day of the Assumption. As Catholics and Assyrians, Chaldeans, this is a very important day for us. It's been celebrated since the 6th century. And
so there are these 3 kids, he points out.
yes, I actually went to the priest and told him, can you believe I helped a woman who actually is a direct victim of ISIS? And he just grabbed my hand, took me around to introduce me to the kids, and he said, you're gonna wanna help them. They are afraid to go back. And he told the kids that their prayers have been answered. Here I am. And immediately, I mean, the look on their faces was like, really, you can help us? Yeah, you know, we've been seeing everything that's happening on Facebook, we're afraid. And then the next thing, you know, their mother came with them at my house, and we sat down, and that's another happy story, successful story where immigration accepted them. And even before the acceptance decision was made, I applied for a work permit for them, and they were accepted. Within a week of their work permit, the mom started working. This is someone who's educated, who was a banker back home, started working at a grocery store, and is very happy. She feels safe. Children's going to school. The oldest graduated high school, is going to college. So those are moments I will treasure.
We're totally out of time. So thank you very much for being here. Keep up the good work, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who has overcome significant hardship and has an inspiring story to tell? Someone who has sacrificed or given over and above to the community and deserves some recognition? If so, please contact us with your nomination for next year's Local Hero Awards. To find out more about our local heroes and to watch interviews with all of the winners, visit our website, midpenmedia.org. At the Mid-Peninsula Community Media Center, you can make your own videos and television programs and take classes in all aspects of media production. You can also hire our professional services team. To find out more about that, go to mcproservices.com. Congratulations to all our winners, and thank you for watching.